coming up, the next major milestone on the road to launch for SpaceX will happen at T-minus 21 minutes 30 seconds. That is the chill down of the 39 engines across the vehicle, the 33 at the base of the booster, and the 6 on the ship upper stage. Those are 3 vacuum engines and 3 sea-level Raptor engines. Is an aerial view of Pad 2 there down at Starbase. You can see how close this facility is to the coastline, and the road that runs along it is a public road. So when SpaceX is not in the process of doing a static fire test of its vehicle or performing a launch, the road is open to the public, and you can see for yourself what it's like down there at this rocket launch facility and rocket factory a little bit further down the road. You can see the frost line starting to build both on the Super Heavy booster as well as the ship upper stage as SpaceX continues on the road towards launch today. The ship upper stage has a propellant capacity of about 1,600 tons. On the Super Heavy booster, it's 3,600 tons. Looking at a tight shot of the quick disconnect there on booster 40 and a look at the inner stage. Notably different than the inner stage that has flown on previous Starship flights. The inner stage remains fixed to the booster as opposed to being jettisoned. Here's a look at the percentage of the fuel loading right now. As mentioned, prop loading on all 4 propellant tanks across the vehicle. SpaceX's Dan Hewitt noting that they are targeting a launch at the opening of the window. Whether 90% go and winds looking quite acceptable for this launch. Range looking good as well. As we're waiting for the next fueling milestone, let's go ahead and take a listen into SpaceX's Dan Hewitt for just a quick recap of Flight 12.
90 degrees. We've modified that startup sequence, made it more robust to flip in the right direction. Super Heavy attempted its boost back burn. 5 engines experienced issues when attempted to relight, so we had an early end to that. We made some hardware modifications to improve relight reliability and updated our alarms on the boards. That booster attempted a landing burn as it approached the Gulf. That was unsuccessful, and it ended its flight with a hard splashdown in the hazard area. Now, while that was happening, Starship made its ascent into space. About 40 seconds after stage step, though, we lost one of those 3 Raptor vacuum engines. Still able to demonstrate our engine out capability, reach the planned suborbital trajectory. We've made some hardware operational changes on this flight and have some additional reliability improvements coming in the future. Once in space, Starship was able to deploy all 20 of the Starlink simulators, 2 modified Starlink satellites that got these brief shots of Starship in space, which was dope. We skipped the in-space burn due to engine issues, but then Starship got ready to re-enter the atmosphere. It was able to do a flap stressing test and did the maneuver to mimic the trajectory that future missions returning to Starbase are going to fly. Then it got to the pre-planned splashdown zone in the Indian Ocean where we had drones and buoys ready and waiting. After the Raptors turned on for a flip, landing burn, Starship was in the water, and Flight 12 was in the books. So, a lot of excitement, a lot of firsts, a lot of learnings. All that set us up for round 2 today. Just getting to a launch day comes with a bunch of hurdles, a ton of problems to solve, a million little stories. Here's just a quick peek into one of those stories that was on the path to Flight 12 that we featured in the second episode of our ongoing documentary, Starship.
And we're going to go ahead and mute that real quick.
20 минут, я уже бутылку кваса выпил.
As this clip does include what is likely copyrighted music, and we don't want to incur a YouTube strike. Time currently T-minus 25 minutes, 8 seconds and counting, though, where we are in the count. SpaceX getting ready to perform the engine chill on the 39 engines across the vehicle. Like with the Falcon 9 or a Falcon Heavy, that will involve flowing a little bit of liquid oxygen across the turbo pumps to protect them during the startup sequence from thermal shock and damage. You can continue to see the visual signs of fueling progress on both ship and the Super Heavy booster. Given the steel skin of the rocket, it's quite prominent seeing the frost line of both the liquid methane and liquid oxygen tanks.
Все. Погнали. 20 минут еще. Ёбаный рот, нахуй. Чё долго, пиздец? Мне дадут авторские права за...
Taking a look at across the various views we have of the launcher here today, this particular camera from our friends over at Avid Space, but we do have our Adam Bernstein up on the rooftop as well. Oh.
YouTube даст по шапке за такое.
Correction, this is actually one of our Adam Bernstein, his wide camera view. We also have a...
Сейчас будет музон, подождите. Сделаем так, похуй. только начнется запуск, я включу звук через 20 минут. Сейчас я не вижу смысла слушать, что они там гундят. Дарк Риван, здорово. Уже виделись сегодня. Точнее, вчера. Так, 5 минут осталось. Я отключаю музыку и включаю звук тут.
A little bit earlier before we start flying, so that time is now at T-60. That's the point where we can pause to wait. We'll only hold there if there's an issue, and we can recycle back. Minus 60 seconds.
Сейчас, пока заправка идет. О, я думал, ты уснул. Нет, ты не уснул. Я тут сижу. Просто это, озон листаю.
Mechanical activations on the tower side as well, with one critical step, unlatching the quick disconnect, feeding propellant into the ship.
And once T-minus 60 seconds has passed, there is still the ability to
4 минуты.
rapidly recycle the count under certain conditions back to that T-minus 60 second hold point.
Ясно, ну
We
что,
can hold there
ждем.
and
Конечно,
assess what
ждем.
happened and if teams can proceed again to T0. We've got about 5 to 8 minutes of hold time, and that will largely be driven by the propellant temperatures that we see on the vehicle while holding. The flame diverter on pad 2, which you can see the side profile of it there on your screen, that activates at T-minus 17 seconds, and if we trigger a hold after that, it will result in a scrub for the day. So we're now just under 3.5 minutes until liftoff. If you've recently joined, we're planning to deploy 20 of our Starlink V3 satellites. These are real V3s on board, so that's exciting. We also would like to perform a Raptor in-space relay as well.
In the final 3 minutes of the count now, as SpaceX approaches the conclusion of prop load today. Booster prop load will wrap up first, and then ship will end after that. SpaceX not tracking any holds to liftoff.
Красавчик, на ТГК подписался. Респект и уважуха.
Just under 2 minutes to liftoff. Fall continues to go well.
И сейчас он хуяк на старте взорвется нахуй. Будет смешно.
SpaceX concluded prop load. You're seeing the additional venting there at the pad, conducting final checks. 90 seconds to the planned liftoff of
Такой
Starship
беленький,
Flight
красивый.
13.
Хотя он
Thrust vector
серебристый,
control
по идее.
test.
Но это, наверное, из-за этой иния. Наверное.
Coming into the final minute of the count. SpaceX not tracking a hold item right now, so we should see them go past the 1 minute mark and progress towards liftoff. 1 minute and counting. And we have a hold triggered. Standing by for further.
Ща полетит.
SpaceX working through some pad checks, working to recycle. Clock is back in motion.
И сейчас перенос такой. Бля, смешно будет.
45 seconds.
Очень смешно будет.
30 seconds. $15 seconds. And here we go. In about 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Raptor engine ignition. And we have a hold and abort.
Чё-то не летит он нихуя.
This, I believe, the first for SpaceX, an engine ignition and an abort at the pad with their Starship rocket for a launch. Standing by for any further from SpaceX.
Бля, тут титров нету.
Let's listen in.
Уроды, блядь.
Starting to light those Raptor engines. As a reminder, since we already turned the diverter on, we are going to be scrubbed for the day. The team's already starting to pull for offload of both vehicles, so starting to get the prop off. We'll take a little bit of time
Всё,
to look
пошли мы
into what
нахуй,
triggered that
короче.
abort. Usually we'll take some data review for all of our teams. But again, we did abort on the startup of the booster. So we weren't tracking any holds moving in to those final seconds into that final minute. But that is going to be a scrub for the day. So the team's now moving into commodity offload. We're going to take the methane and the oxygen off of both Starship and Super Heavy. So not the end result you're looking for, but we've got vehicle there still on the pad, and they're going to get these commodities offloaded. We'll take some time, dig into what triggered that abort once the booster was igniting to launch, and then we'll figure out what our path forward is going to be. Again, if you're just jumping in, we're not going to be launching today. We got all the way down to startup, triggered a hold on the booster, and that shut down the engines right as they were starting to ignite. All right, so at this point, they're going to get into offload. We're going to get all the methane, all the oxygen off the vehicle, and then we'll figure out next steps. So, no Starship launch today. We'll dig in with the teams, figure out what happened, and figure out when our next attempt is going to be. And obviously, we're going to keep you updated as well. So we'll dig into what our recycle time is, when we're going to be able to try again. Be sure to follow us on X
Вот
at
справа сверху
SpaceX.
написано
We're going to share
очистка.
updates there as soon as more information becomes available and when we can get back for flying. So thanks for tuning in today. Hopefully, we'll be back real soon for Flight 13 and another.
Я не шарю, но там идет какая-то очистка.
And an unfortunate end to a launch attempt today. Flight 13 ends with a pad ignition abort.
Походу
And
перенос.
SpaceX digging into the data now to determine, as you heard from commentator Dan Hewitt, when they will be able to recycle and try again with this mission. The next steps, SpaceX will detank the launch vehicle and start to pour through that data that they did get from the fueling of the rocket, the initial ignition, and we will of course keep you apprised as we learn more about what the next steps are going to be, when the next launch attempt will take place, and what SpaceX has learned about their version 3 Raptor engines, that this was going to be just the second time that one of these had taken flight. The last major milestone before SpaceX launched this, or was going to attempt to launch this mission, was performing a 33 engine static fire of this booster.
Блин, мне на запуске Starship вообще, походу, лучше не смотреть, когда первый раз пытался посмотреть, 2 раза перенос был. Считай, 11-й полет. В итоге я забыл, и третьего переноса не было.
Factory.
бывает.
They did some final checkouts and then rolled the booster here to the pad earlier this week and then stacked the ship on top and went for
Я
a
вообще
launch
второй
attempt
раз
today, which
смотрю
unfortunately, as we just
запуск.
saw, ended with a scrub. Do want to thank those of you who've been supporting us with our coverage here today. An unfortunate end to this Flight 13 launch attempt. But certainly thanks to all of you for supporting with the various super chats and to our wonderful channel members who help make this launch attempt coverage possible. Want to thank our friends over at Avid Space for helping to provide some great views of the Starship rocket, as well as to our Adam Bernstein out on the ground there down at Starbase, and will still be with us for future attempt, depending on the timing. Of course, we'll work out the logistics on our end, but bring you a wonderful broadcast whenever SpaceX is ready to get back in the saddle on this one. Big thanks to our editors, Stephen Young, and to John Pisani for running the technical operations of this broadcast. Thanks to our moderators in the chat, to Jeff Hansen, M. Teresa, and Jules for helping to hold it down in the chat space, and to channel member Cumulus Granadas for answering folks' questions in the chat. Thanks as well to our guests that we had join us, to Jack Core from Payload, Eric Berger of Ars Technica, and apologies that we didn't get to our final guest, Marina Korn, but we'll look to see if we can get her back for a future launch attempt for Flight 13.
Короче, пошли мы нахуй, я понял. Мы сегодня никуда не летим.
For all of us here at Spaceflight Now, I'm Will Robinson Smith. Remember, folks, be good to yourselves, be good to others. We will see you next time. Until then, bye-bye.
Бай-бай. Бля, в натуре не будет. Ну и на кой хуй я тут сидел? Бля, в натуре все. На кой хуй мне твоя движуха, блядь? Ну как-то все, блядь, и закончилось.
In advance, to this time actually a day in advance, or a couple of days in advance. And of course they schedule well into the future, so SpaceX will have many opportunities to launch. At the end of the day, it's just going to boil down to the weather, which is unfortunate because the conditions were beautiful today, and of course if the vehicle is actually ready or not. We've seen SpaceX do 24-hour turnarounds of Starship multiple times in the past. It happened on the previous flight of Starship, but of course that previous flight was down to a GSC issue, mainly revolving surrounding the ship quick disconnect not wanting to retract. So it'll be interesting to see what happens this time around with it being a post-ignition abort, because we did see on the 10 engine static fire of booster 19, the previous super heavy booster, they actually damaged some Raptor engines because they had to stop the Raptors so quickly. So of course SpaceX would have learned from that, and they've been implementing upgrades to the vehicles between the previous flight and this flight. But if they had to do a hard start and there was damage to the Raptors, then it's going to be a Raptor swap. I mean, fingers crossed that didn't happen, and fingers crossed the Raptors are happy and healthy. But those four clearly were not happy and healthy because they didn't ignite.
Yeah, I see there were a lot of people asking about that. And the other question then becomes, is it the engines? Is it a sensor? You don't know, but you also don't want to risk it. This still seems very different from the hard stop that we saw on the static fires, at least, because those we later found out was because of a ground issue that called the abort on those tests. This doesn't seem like it was the ground infrastructure. Again, we don't know for sure, but based on what we saw with that water deluge system, I mean, Ryan, that looked like it performed as it was supposed to.
I mean, the entire thing spooled up. We got the top deck going before we got to ignition, and you know the live telemetry showed 4 engines not igniting on the middle ring of the engine. Interestingly, they all appear to be on the kind of the same side of the booster. There's 2 that don't ignite, a gap of 1 that does ignite, and then another 2 that don't ignite. Of course, there are...
Да похер уже, в следующий раз получается. Чё тогда? Всем спокойной ночи. В следующий раз тогда через SpaceX попробуем. Все тогда. Всем спасибо за просмотр. Лайкос не забываем. Давайте, блядь, всем спокойной ночи.